Welcome back, you guys, to another case. Today we're going to be covering the Seath Jackson murder, and this has a lot of moving parts. And I mean that because there are just about, I believe it's 6 people. I don't know why my screen decided to do 2 images of Charlie Ely, but there are 6, and they were also called the Summer 6. We have Michael Bargo. We have Amber Wright, Kyle Hooper. Amber Wright and Kyle Hooper are half brother and sister. We have Justin Soto, who's like the weird older guy that's hanging out with teenagers. Charlie K. Ely and James Young III, who got charged as an accessory. And he was much older. He was the stepfather or ex-stepfather of Amber Wright and Kyle Hooper. The most adult one out of all of them. So Michael Bargo was 21. Amber Wright was 17. Kyle Hooper was 19. Justin Soto, 22. Charlie Ely, 21. And James Young III, old enough to not even have his age next to any of the research that I did. So this here is our victim, Seath Jackson, who will forever be 15 years old. And what led to his murder is just completely atrocious. This occurred in Bellevue, Florida on April 17th, 2011. Seath Jackson was born in February 1996 and was the youngest of 3 children to Scott and Sonia Jackson. Seath dreamt of becoming a UFC fighter and loved to be around friends and family. Seath was 15 years old and a sophomore at Bellevue High School. Fast forward to April 17th, 2011. Sonia, Seath's mom, messaged Seath to see if he needed a ride home. His response was, and I quote, "Never mind, bitch!" Exclamation point. And it seemed very out of character of Seath. Seath's mom brushed this off, assuming that Seath was just being a moody teenager. He also told her he was staying at a friend's house, and she assumed Seath was staying with one of his close friends named William, as he stayed there often. It was when William called Sonia to say that he couldn't get in touch with Seath is when Sonia reported Seath missing on April 18th, 2011. Seath Jackson and Amber Wright began a relationship in December 2010 and broke up in March of 2011. Amber, then 15, began dating 18-year-old Michael Bargo. Now remember, Amber was 17. Michael Bargo was 21 years old. Michael Bargo was also living with Kyle Hooper and Charlie Ely in Charlie Ely's parents' trailer. Her biological parents had been in jail, and the trailer was left there, and she moved down from up north and took over the trailer. Seath took this breakup badly, and a lot, I believe, that played into, well, not even just that I believe, that has been proven in this case, is that social media really revved up the engines when it came to these teenagers. A lot was said on social media. In the run-up to Seath's disappearance, they had been feuding on social media in comments and posts on Facebook. So we can see on here, there's people talking a lot of trash. And then we have Seath Jackson. Ooh, that's my dog, bro. Shit, it's going down Friday if he wants it or not. A lot of crappy verbiage. Seath then says, haha, this bee is dumb as fuck, bro. He can't fight my blank. I bet your son can whoop his pee ass. And then here's Amber Wright. And she says, see, just like I said, Seth, stop being childish. And how the F did I cheat on you the whole time? When I was pretty much lived with you when we were together, I was with you 24 effing 7. So stop talking shit. That's all you want. That's all you know how to do is get drama started. And how am I a hoe? What? Because I dumped you? Because I got fed up with you? Throwing me into walls? Now you will see down the line where this comes in. I was tired of you calling me a C and a white. Oh, a whore. A white. A whore every day. I got tired of you. Don't you get over the jealousy. Okay, so we can tell when he ends up writing back after her like a million paragraphs. Amber, if you would go back and read some of the shit I wrote. I said I was done with you and you should be done with me. They're going back and forth on social media. Everybody can see it. I mean, pretty I would say pretty typical teenage stuff, I guess. Immaturity, all of that. Um Clearly was not a good breakup and it continued on social media. I will say that if I were the parents of either of these two, I would be deactivating their accounts immediately because clearly this unfortunately escalated into something that it shouldn't have. Authorities got a tip the next day that led them to Seth's burned remains. The remains were left in a flooded Ocala, Florida quarry. They were placed in paint buckets and weighed down with cinder blocks. Partial remains were also discovered in a burn pit in the yard of a home in Somerville, Florida. Police had determined Seth was beaten and shot in the head with a .22 caliber bullet before being burned and then dismembered. At that time, Michael Bargo lived at Charlie Ely's house along with Kyle Hooper. Kyle Hooper was then 16 and Justin Soto then 20. Amber Wright, Kyle Hooper's half sister, stayed there frequently. So we have a small trailer filled with some semi-adults and teenagers just doing whatever they want to do. The police learned that from Kyle and Amber's mother on April 19th, 2011, that Seth was killed at Charlie's house. Kyle's mother learned it from Kyle himself. And I will put in the description box the interrogation videos. Kyle was actually the one who was sitting at his mom's on the couch or something of that sort and saw something on the news referring to Seth Jackson missing, and he told his mother that he needed to go to the police station and that he knew what had happened to Seth. On April 17th, Michael talked to the others about killing Seath. Amber would lure Seath to the house, and Justin, Michael, and Kyle would catch him by surprise. William, Seth's best friend, William Samalot, told police that on April 17th, he and Seath were at a friend's house, but left each other's company at or around 9:15 p.m. when Seath headed to Charlie Ely's house. Charlie Ely's, this one down here, with the eye that just doesn't know where it's going. We're going to guess somewhere. Text messages between Amber and Seath from that night showed that she had asked him to come over to work things out. Now, during these text exchanges, it was said that Seath continued to reiterate that he had a feeling that he was going to be jumped, and that if he was, in fact, jumped when he got there, that he would never forgive Amber for it. Seath met Amber and Charlie and headed to Charlie's house. Once inside, Kyle Hooper, Amber Wright's brother, struck Seath in the head with an axe handle, while Justin Soto attacked him as well. That's when Michael Bargo shot Seath twice. So we're talking, we have Kyle Hooper struck. Seath walks in, Kyle Hooper strikes Seath in the head with an axe handle. Then Justin Soto, all big and bad, attacks him. And then Michael Bargo goes up to him and shoots Seath twice with a .22 caliber firearm. After that, Seath obviously is severely injured. In my head, I don't even know how this occurred. He was able to get up and run out of that house. And while Amber and Charlie were apparently hiding in a bathroom, I don't know how much I believe that. Who knows? Only they do. Justin chased Seath outside and tackled him in the front yard, and that's where Michael shot him a third time. So 2 shots. So he struck, attacked, shot twice in the house. He runs outside. He's then attacked by Justin Soto and then shot again for a third time by Michael Bargo. Big and bad Michael Bargo, I swear. The 3 men then carried Seath back into the house, put him in a bathtub. And this is where this entire case just will make your stomach turn. Not only is Seath hanging on, grasping at life at this point, Michael Bargo then places Seath's body in a bathtub. Seath is still alive. He decides that he's going to break Seath's kneecaps. And he claims he needed to do that to fit him in a sleeping bag. Yet he realized that Seath was still alive. So then Michael shot Seath several more times. They placed the body in a sleeping bag, and then they put the body in a fire pit and burned his remains. Reportedly, they stayed up partying while the body burned. The remains were then put into paint buckets. The next morning, Michael and Justin went to a quarry in Ocala, Florida. They were driven there by James Havens, Amber and Kyle's stepdad, who caught on an accessory charge with Seath's remains in paint buckets, were then dropped into water weighed down by cinder blocks. Kyle helped Amber and Charlie clean with bleach, but evidence remained in the house. Charlie's DNA was found in a blood mixture in the bathroom. Kyle's DNA was found in a blood mixture in the living room that also contained Seath's blood. Michael's DNA was located in the blood on the kitchen ceiling, And DNA analysis of the remains found at the quarry and the fire pit showed that they came from the same person, the biological son of Sonia and Scott Jackson, Seth Jackson. Authorities found a projectile in the remains as well.
Full testimony today in the case against two siblings accused in the murder of a Marion County teen. Prosecutors played two video interviews that showed the apparent confessions of both Amber Wright and Kyle Hooper. Both are charged with first-degree murder in the death of Seth Jackson. Watch 2's Gail Pascal-Brown is live tonight in Marion County. And Gail, the deadly confrontation is described in detail on that taped confession.
Yes, it is. 2 jurors of 6, 1 trial, and Kyle Hooper's jury this afternoon heard how Seth Jackson was beaten, shot multiple times, his body burned, and then his remains dumped into a lime rock pit. In the afternoon, the state called on Detective Rhonda Stroop, the lead investigator in the case, who also interviewed Kyle Hooper twice.
And did he say anything about how he felt about Seth Jackson's death?
Yes, in that tape he says, I don't feel bad about his death, and he also says he deserved it.
Kyle Hooper's jury in the joint murder trial of him and his sister Amber Wright heard his tape confession. Amber was not in the courtroom. The two are charged with first-degree murder of 15-year-old Seth Jackson in April of last year.
But they hit him over the head with a stick. Who's your head? Seth. Okay. And he was in the chair, and I got in the kitchen. I said, "Now," and then all of a sudden I hear, bam, bam, bam. Mike sitting there laying bullets into him. So you saw Mike Barger shoot Seth? Yes, ma'am. And he grabbed the body, put it into the bathtub, and then he was talking about how he was going to burn it, and then there was a rock quarry over here by Gator Mountain or whatever, and he was going to dump the ashes or whatever into the rock quarry.
Hooper and his sister Amber, along with 3 other defendants, are accused of luring Seth Jackson back to the Summerfield home. The house belongs to Charlie Ely, who's already serving a life sentence for Seth's murder. Monday, the judge ruled Charlie Ely did not have to testify because her sentence is on appeal. Michael Bargo, the accused mastermind behind the murder, is still awaiting trial.
How many times did Mike shoot him? I don't know. I heard 8.
Now, the tape confession is about an hour and 40 minutes long, so Judge David Eddy broke it up so that the juror could get it. But then when they went back to hear the last portion, there was a big chunk of it that was missing. So they had to take a bit of a recess to figure out what's going on. The state had hoped to rest today, but we don't know if that's going to happen because they're still working with this particular tape. We'll let you know what happens as soon as we do. I'm Gail Pascal-Brown.
Tracy Havens, Amber and Kyle's mom, brought Kyle to the police station. Kyle was interviewed by Detective Rhonda Stroop with his mom in the room. He told Detective Stroop that Amber had Seth come to the house so that she could talk to him and that Michael shot Seth and that he was dead. Amber also gave a statement backing Kyle's version of events. She maintained her innocence, saying she was locked in a bathroom with Charlie Ely and that Michael Bargo threatened them as well. Michael also told several people different versions of this story about getting into a fight and killing someone before burning their body. Michael Bargo claimed in one version of his stories that this person had sexually assaulted his sister, and in another version, raped his sister. Authorities promptly arrested all 5. And Michael Bargo was found hiding at a friend's house. In June of 2012, Amber and Kyle were found guilty of first-degree murder. Amber had a retrial in early of 2016, ending with the same verdict. Charlie and Justin also received life sentences, but Charlie's conviction was vacated in 2020, leading to a guilty plea on a lesser charge and an eventual release date. I did come across something about her being released when I was looking up some more footage for this, and we will get into it. Michael Bargo was sentenced to death. We will look him up on death row. Amber Wright will serve life in prison for her role in the murder of her ex-boyfriend, Seth Jackson. Her sentence will be subject to review after 25 years. She did previously, I can't remember what year it was, but we're gonna find out. She did an interview, and this is actually how I found out about this case because I had never heard about it before. She did a interview on She was on a Piers Morgan Most Dangerous Women or Women That Murder. It's a Piers Morgan episode. I think you can see it on, I want to say that I saw The Most Dangerous Teen Women. The Most Dangerous Teen Women he's ever met. And I will link that interview, the Piers Morgan interview, in the description as well. It's crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and quote a few things that Judge Anthony Tati told Amber Wright at her sentencing. And I quote, I have not seen or heard anything more despicable than what led to Seth Jackson's death. I cannot imagine a circumstance any worse. And I pray to God that the reason behind this is some chemical imbalance or a brain that isn't fully matured. It's really hard to deal with the notion that such evil could exist without an explanation. And she was 17, obviously, when this occurred. And that's one of the main reasons why she'll have the opportunity to be her case to be reviewed after 25 years. But Judge Tati echoed Circuit Judge David Eddy, who first sentenced Wright in 2012. Eddy called the murder the most heinous he had seen in 15 years of being a judge. In a letter read aloud at the hearing, Sonia Jackson emphasized Amber Wright's role in the deliberately planned murder. Sonia Jackson asked Judge Tati to sentence Wright to life in prison. It doesn't take a fully developed mind to understand right from wrong, Jackson said. A 2-year-old learns that hurting others is not acceptable in our society. Speaking to Wright, Jackson repeated the words she read at Wright's original sentencing. Amber, we hope that guilt eats you inside and out, knowing that you caused all of this, she said. You fed into Bargo's deranged desires with your lies. All of this happened because of you.
The jury unanimously find that defendant Michael Shane Bargo Jr. should be sentenced to death. Yes.
Michael Bargo holds his head after hearing he is sentenced to death for the second time on Tuesday. In 2013, 10 out of 12 jurors decided he should be put to death, but since then, a new state law requiring that death penalties be unanimous gave Bargo another chance. Prosecutors say Bargo was the leader in a group's plot to kill 15-year-old Seth Jackson at a Summerfield home.
A 15-year-old child knew he was being dragged back into a house and was going to die.
Bargo and 4 others beat and shot Jackson to death 8 years ago. The group burned his body and disposed of it in paint buckets, which were dumped into a water-filled quarry. The defense argues Bargo suffers from mental illnesses and should be spared.
He was not taking any medication for any of the mental illnesses that he had been diagnosed with.
The judge explains to the jury the new rules.
If you do not all 12 agree, then you check no.
And a few hours later,
Because the jury
but prosecutors emphasized that Wright's text messages lured Seth to the home that night in an interview recorded at the Marion County Sheriff's Office before her arrest, which the jury heard at trial. Wright said Bargo pressured her to contact Seth. Family members who spoke in Wright's defense acknowledged the Jackson's family's pain, but emphasized that Wright had matured since the murder. Now, you have to think, and I'm not saying this in a sense of feel sorry for this mother at all. Her, Amber Wright, her daughter, and her son, Kyle Hooper, are both in prison. So I think that's kind of like her whole stance on it is, okay, I luckily have never been in a situation like this. I could only imagine. But I think that her stance behind it was, I'm losing 2 of my kids too. But, you're really not. They're still alive and they weren't brutally murdered. So, and then she also, family members also stated, I just hope and pray that you can make the right decision and give her a chance to be the person she could be. Amber Wright's mother pleaded. Wright said that she feels guilty and remorseful and that she is trying to be a better person. And she also said, I'm not going to say a wonderful person. She said, I'm not. I make mistakes. I still do. I just hope one day I'll be allowed to have that chance to prove myself, not just to you or to anybody else, but to myself as well. Judge Tati, who announced that he had never sentenced anyone to life in prison in 5 years as a judge, sentenced Wright to life in prison with a review after 25 years. And he said to her, and I quote, I hope that what's responsible for that is some lack of development in your brain, something you can grow out of, he told Wright, that would give me some hope. I know that when it comes to teenagers committing acts of violence, there is there is a lot of different types of sentencing and reviews because as a child, your brain's not fully developed, but me at 16, I would never even imagine doing anything remotely like this or think about anything like this. Let's get into Charlie Ely and see if she got released.
Of taking part in a high-profile murder is being set free from prison. Nearly a decade ago, 15-year-old Seath Jackson was lured to a home in Summerfield where he was shot to death and his body burned. Today, one of the 5 people convicted of his murder was granted a new sentence. News 6 investigator Mike DeForest was in court for the plea hearing.
Charlie Ely was originally supposed to spend the rest of her life in prison, but earlier this year, a federal judge threw out her murder conviction, saying she did not receive a fair trial. Now Ely is getting out.
Can you tell me your full name, please?
Charlie K. Ely.
Charlie Ely has spent nearly 10 years in prison for murder, but today, while appearing in court by video conference, Ely entered into a new plea agreement that will allow her to walk free.
I've been fighting for her for 8 years, and I'm
Y'all, if you don't know who this man is, this is Casey Anthony's former attorney, Jose Baez. And I don't know who has money in Charlie Ely's family, but a retainer for this man, I believe, is $150,000. Holy shit.
I'm really happy that she's getting out.
In 2011, prosecutors say Ely helped lure 15-year-old Seath Jackson to her home in Summerfield, where a group of young men murdered the teen and burned his body. Michael Bargo was sentenced to death for his role in the crime. 4 others, including Ely, received life sentences. But Ely's attorney, Jose Baez, appealed the conviction, arguing that another lawyer who originally represented Ely at trial made several critical mistakes. Earlier this year, a federal judge ruled that Ely was denied her constitutional right to a fair trial.
If all parties don't do their jobs, especially the defense lawyer, this is the result of what could happen.
Prosecutors could have put Ely on trial again for first-degree murder, but instead they allowed her to plead guilty to second-degree murder. The judge then sentenced Ely to the 10 years in prison she's already served.
She feels terrible for the Jackson family, and this is not a day to celebrate. And for that reason, she decided to take the plea just to go home and move on with her life.
The murder victim's family was not in court for today's hearing, but Seath Jackson's mother tells me by phone that she did not even want to make a formal statement, indicating she was so angry she was afraid she would say the wrong thing. Reporting in Marion County, Mike DeForest, News 6.
Well, Jose Baez does it again, I guess. I had no idea that he represented her, but so this was, oh my God, this was 4 years ago. She really released 4 years ago? That's crazy. I thought it was actually like a year ago. Wow. Well, that is all I have for this one. I am going to make sure that I put all of Michael Bargo's, he takes the stand, of course he does. I'm going to make sure I add all of those videos into the description box so you guys can go about anytime you want and watch all of that. And I appreciate you watching. Make sure to hit that like button. Help me out a little bit. And subscribe if you aren't, if you like this content. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.